Hello everybody, you're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain. This is the weekly radio show where we chat about the local arts news. We have a different guest on each week. We play local unsigned and or independent music. We have an album review from Twangling Jack Ford, and we head over to the Rhylight Zone for some short stories and or some poetry. We're usually on Tuesday nights, but when the football is on we get moved over to Wednesday. You can also listen to us on the Wickham Sound Listen Again. We're on iTunes, Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts, and we're also repeated here on Wickham Sound on Monday night. You can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us, and you can also email me here at the studio on dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. I'd love to hear from you. So we're going to head straight into the Rhylight Zone, and this week we are continuing our serialization of my novel, formerly The Rise and Fall of a Social Network. If you've missed previous episodes, you can always pick them up on Catch Up. The book is also available on Amazon and all good bookstores. So, formerly by myself, Dane Cobain.
Chapter 9. John wasn't kidding when he said he was stepping up security. Peter flew back from Palo Alto a couple of days later, and his security advisor, a stocky bodybuilder called Niels, joined us shortly afterwards. He didn't talk much. He was an ex-army type with slight paranoia and a keen eye for detail. A nice guy once you got to know him. Niels, John and Peter locked themselves away for a couple of days to form a war committee, and then re-emerged with stern faces and a series of baffling charts, diagrams and spreadsheets which they claimed would be enough to guarantee our security. "It's going to be great," babbled John as he showed Niels around the office for the first time. "Guys, this is Niels. He's going to scare away the bad guys." "Who exactly are the bad guys?" Niels asked. John laughed. "That's just it, Niels. We don't know. They don't exactly carry business cards. Part of your job will be to find out who they are and to stop them by any means necessary." "That's only part of it?" "Yeah," John said. "We work hard here. You'll also take over the CCTV system and the alarms. Don't worry about the servers. Peter looks after those. He's the only person who even knows where they are. You'll also be in charge of out-of-hours security. Form a team that you trust and then set up a watch. I want protection around the clock for both the office and the flat. Guarding them ourselves just isn't going to cut it. We need professionals. Think you can manage it?" Niels grinned, a huge expansive smile that oozed self-confidence and quiet mastery. It made me feel uncomfortable. "Well, that depends," he replied. "What's your budget?" "Tell us what you need and we'll see what we can do. This is top priority. Secure the place and find out who's trying to mess with us. We'll cover any reasonable costs. Until we know who they are, our hands are tied. How'd you fight his shadow?" Silence descended upon the room. Even Elaine was staring at John with rapt attention. His words had hit home. We just didn't know what we were going to do. As always, Formerly's future was uncertain. Niels stayed true to his word, and within 2 weeks he'd assembled a squad to guard the two premises around the clock. There was talk of getting dogs at both locations too. Flick, of course, was thrilled by the prospect of having an animal in the office. "Think of the PR value in that," she said. "Marketing is about telling stories, and this could be a great one." "I'm not talking about a cocker spaniel, Flick." Niels had a way of speaking which made everyone else feel like an idiot. "I'm talking about an Alsatian or a bulldog, maybe a retired police dog if we can get one. I'm talking about scaring them. Put that one in your storybook." Still, we felt safer with Niels around, even though he seemed to serve no practical purpose. Either way, I was too busy with my own problems. Abby and I had been putting in long hours to follow John's vague orders to work on a new feature that the bosses wanted to keep under wraps until its launch. We hadn't been briefed about it, and our instructions still came in the form of a list of coded variables, but I'd been working at the company for long enough to be able to make a good guess at what I was working on. My suspicions were confirmed the following week when John and Peter called the team together for another meeting. By now, our growth was beginning to show. We had one hell of a team. 2 of our interns were now officially recognised as junior developers. The 3rd one left, but John had recruited 5 more from his old university. Niels was there as well, and so were some of his men. There were always at least 2 of them in the office at any time of the day or night. Niels said it was so that there was always someone there to watch the watcher. Then there was Elaine, who was working flat out and needed frequent help from Flick and the founders just to stay on top of things, and the rest of the team. All in all, I counted 14 people. 3 months ago, there were 6 of us. Big news, boys and girls. When revealing things to the team, John always acted like a footballer or a rock and roll star at a press conference. "We're monetizing, baby." "That's right," grinned Peter. "It's time to start showing our investors that we can make some money." "With adverts, right?" I asked. John glared at me. I took the hint and piped down. Yes, he sighed, with adverts. Now, I know what you're thinking. Flick, this will affect you in particular. What are people going to think when they find out that a memorial site is running adverts? They're going to be pretty I imagine, Flick replied. Peter smiled. You hit the nail on the head, Flick. Our users are our lifeblood. We have to keep them on our side. So what are we going to do? She asked. It's simple, replied John, taking control of the situation. The adverts appear on the back end on the users' admin panels. That way, advertisers can market to the living. No ads will be displayed on the memorials of the deceased. We mean no disrespect. And what about the advertisers? I asked. Where do they come in? We're launching a do-it-yourself system, Peter replied, which is what you and Abby have been working on. When that launches, we can target small businesses. In the meantime, we've signed an exclusive deal with an insurance provider to get the first set of ads up and running. We're talking big money, and there's plenty more of it just waiting for us to reach out and take it. Flick was on the edge of her seat. This was huge news, and it could change the company forever. When the adverts went live, we could become profitable within a couple of years, assuming our users didn't abandon us. Unfortunately, in situations like these, you have to push the updates live and hope for the best. 2 days later, I overheard an intense conversation between the two founders while I was tucked away in the toilet. They entered the room in the middle of a heated discussion. It sounded like they'd been talking for a while. Damn it, John, Peter was saying. I don't like it. What happens if the users revolt? If we lose the users, we lose the site. We don't have a choice, John snapped. We're cleaned out, Pete. If we don't start making money soon, we're finished anyway. We've got to do something. Can't we take on more investment? Cut overheads? Who's going to invest in us if we don't prove we can make some money? True, Peter agreed. But ads? I hate ads. I never thought we'd sell out. I couldn't see them, but I could picture John's reaction as clearly as if he'd been standing in front of me. His cheeks always flushed when he was angry, and Peter picked off. When John replied, his voice was calm and monotone. He was clearly making an effort. Me neither, he replied. I didn't think we'd get this far, but now we're here. If we don't continue, then everything was pointless. Death is always pointless, John. Don't act like you give a damn about the dead. You just don't want to fail. And you don't want to fail either, John snapped. Let's face it, you're in just as deep as I am. You'd better hope that no one finds out what we're up to. Be careful with who you trust. There could be a mole inside the company for all we know. And look after yourself in Palo Alto. I waited for the two founders to leave and then gave it an extra 5 minutes just in case. I didn't want anyone to know what I'd heard. It was hard enough to keep my head down. That evening, Sarah and I shared a rare moment of solitude. These days, we were more like friends than lovers, partly because we never saw each other, but we still shared the bed when we were both at home, and we did a little more than that after a bottle of wine and a pleasant conversation. We were cuddled up on the sofa with 2 bottles of rosé and 6 cans of Stella, content to chill in front of the TV with a takeaway pizza. As always, the conversation turned to work, and I was just telling Sarah about the conversation I'd overheard when I realised that her eyes had glazed over and she wasn't listening. What's the matter? I asked. She took a swig from her wine and then looked away to refill her glass. I'm just sick of it, Dan. Formally, that's all you ever talk about. I remember when you used to talk about me, about my work and my life. It's not my fault if you never want to talk about it, I replied. You're always too tired. That's not the point, she snapped, and you know it. We never spend any time together because we're both so busy. I love having my own life, and I know you've got your own stuff to deal with, but a girl needs to feel special from time to time. I'll try harder, I promised. She held my hand and pressed closer. But don't you see, Dan? You shouldn't have to try. You should do it automatically. And that's the problem. What do you mean? I asked. The alcohol was starting to get to me, and I needed to go to the toilet. Sarah sighed. Tomorrow's my birthday, she said. And we haven't even mentioned it. Had you forgotten? Of course not, I lied. I'm taking you out for dinner after work if you can make it. I thought you'd never ask, she said. I'll be there. Of course, life doesn't work like that. It's like there's a constant curse that follows me around. An Israeli research firm reported a major security flaw, and John made us stay until the fix went live. In all fairness, we were lucky that the bug was found by good guys. We were offering cash rewards for amateurs who submitted bug reports, but the money that we paid out was a pittance in comparison to the damage that a hacker could do. We got the bug fixed after working in a team of 4 to replicate and annihilate the problem, but it was still just after 9 by the time that we were finished. I left straight afterwards, but Abby stayed late to work on his main project, a refinement to the advertising dashboard. It still hadn't gone live, and there was going to be hell to pay if it wasn't ready by the weekend. But that wasn't my problem. I had my own deadlines to worry about. I called Sarah to let her know I was running late, and she gave me an earful down the telephone line. I decided to stop off on my way back home to pick up some flowers, not realising that she wouldn't be there to receive them. To make matters worse, I got stuck in commuter traffic and didn't get back to the flat until 10. I was supposed to be meeting Sarah 2 hours earlier, but after the second call to let her know I was going to be even later, she refused to pick up the phone. I was hardly surprised that she wasn't there. She had, however, left a note. It didn't look good. "Dan," it began. Her handwriting was hurried, and she'd written the message on a series of post-it notes that she'd attached, one after the other, to the TV screen. "You've got some explaining to do. When I said no excuses, I meant it. I waited as long as I could, but I gave up and went out with the girls instead. Let's talk about this tomorrow. I'm not impressed."
Life can seem a vicious game, and you know love is just the same. Lay down your cards, give it a try. Can you see the girl with me? Well, she ain't my property, just don't come and ask me why. I'm tired of all their prying eyes, and I'm bored of all the lies and the gossip that I hear. I'll sage love songs just for you, lyrics you can misconstrue and hear what you want to hear. I gave you what I had inside, then watched you take me for a ride, though I tried to be sincere. I'm tired of your lying eyes, and I'm bored of all the sides and the tears when you're near. But if you're ever feeling down, you know I'll always be around. I can't seem to stay away, so go. You must let go of my hand. You're not my woman, I'm not your man. There's a kindness being cruel. You'll go and try and play this cool. Ignore your heart, play by the rules, then it's me that feels the fool. I'm sick and tired of my disguise, so I'll just say my goodbyes and then slowly disappear. 'Cause I'm not really here, 'cause I'm not really here, I'm not really here.
That was I'm Not Really Here by the Sepia Tone Folk Collective. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and it's time for us to be joined by this week's guest, who is local music promoter, Neil Brown.
The first question, you may or may not have an answer to this, but I ask everybody, what was the last book that you read and what did you think of it?
What's that book I read? The book I'm currently reading, I'm trying to remember the name of it, because I've not picked it up for a while. I just got bought a book. I think it was called The Magic in Your Mind. I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking to read it. So that's what I can remember.
Awesome. What's that about?
It's basically about unlocking not hidden potential, but ways of being able to manifest what you want to happen in your life, basically.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. So obviously today I want to talk about the events that you've been hosting, and we're going to talk about the rebrand and whatnot as well. But so you started out as Books Lockdown Sessions, and I wondered if you could tell us kind of how that got started and what was, behind your decision to start putting on the lockdown sessions?
Well, so I mean, I'd run events previously, kind of in my local town in Judge Cross when I lived there. But over lockdown, it's kind of I just missed going to gigs and things really, and had a few friends that were musicians, and I'd seen another show that had been on sort of right at the start of lockdown, like because ours started on the 11th of April, so it was like before that even, it was like mid-March.
Yeah.
And spoke to the guy who did it, and he told me kind of how to set it up and stuff. And yeah, so we did it for a couple of weeks. It was supposed to be just a few weeks, the people I know that are musicians doing it, and then obviously lockdown continued
Yeah.
and everything, so yeah, we kept on going with it. I ended up recruiting different people, that some that I met through buskers in London and different things like that, others that I'd found online. I generally did it by listening to their live streams rather than listening to Spotify and things like that, because I wanted to sort of see what they were like live.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing was mainly about, one, giving the musicians a sort of a platform to play when they didn't have any gigs, but two as well, just kind of trying to help people with regards to mental health, and raise money, but also raise awareness, and kind of give people something to do really, while when they couldn't go out.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I mean, that ties into, I don't think I've jotted it down as a question, but quite often when I was interviewing musicians and whatnot during lockdown, I was kind of asking, like, how important is music to people's mental health, and the effect that it's kind of had on people not being able to go to live music shows during lockdown. So I suppose with what you were doing, it's kind of got those three things covered. It gives the musicians, an outlet where they've got somewhere to play. It gives the listeners somewhere where they can still enjoy live music. And as you say, then it's just sort of beneficial for mental health for everybody, really.
No, absolutely. I mean, even in the ones I do now with the live gigs, I feel that music, it creates the setting that we're going for with the acoustic kind of shows. It kind of hoping it kind of creates a safe space where people can, they want it, they can listen to music, or if they want to chat about, different things in general, then they can do as well. It's kind of that kind of atmosphere and vibe we're going for. So yeah, definitely, I think music for me definitely has always been a big part of my mental health, and I think a lot of people find it very, and also as well, I like to have people on who are singer songwriters as well.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of songwriters use their mental health, to write songs. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome, cool. And how many did you do when you were doing the lockdown sessions? Because as you say, lockdown kind of carried on for a lot longer than anybody was expecting. And because I think I noticed as well, like during that, a few different people tried putting on events, but I think your events were the only ones that really carried on being consistent throughout. I think a lot of people did like 2 or 3 and then gave up, whereas you seem to kind of consistently sort of stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, well, we ended up doing 35 shows. 33 of them were music ones. We did a couple of comedy ones towards the end as well. But yeah, it kind of, I mean, I think first 12 weeks we did consecutively.
Yeah.
And then we started doing fortnightly, because it was quite a lot to be doing every week.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did it for well over a year in the end. I think it was about 14, 15 months worth. It was quite a long, but yeah, as I say, it was, well, no one really knew. But yeah, it was only going to be a few weeks, and then but it just kept going really. I think the last one we did was in the build up to not Frogfest this year, but Frogfest last year.
Yeah.
Because it was Frogfest Light last year, and we had a couple on who were going to play Frogfest. So it was like, we did a midweek one, which we hadn't. We did a Thursday one, and we hadn't done a Thursday one before. But yeah.
Cool, awesome. And then so obviously that kind of takes us up to when lockdown eased, and then you still had the Books Lockdown Sessions brand, and so you went through a rebrand. And I wondered what you could tell us about that. Tell us a bit about the new name and the direction that you've gone in sort of since lockdown finished.
Yeah, so we obviously wanted to. The first gig we did coming back was called Box Lockdown Music Festival Live, basically, just because that was the name we'd use. That was the one everybody knew.
Yeah.
But previously, when I'd had gigs, say locally, before lockdown and everything, it had been called the Entertainment Jam back then. It was in Giles Cross, it wasn't here in High Wycombe, but that was what it was called then. And the idea is that while it's called Entertainment Jam, it's not a jam as such in that all musicians just come and play, but it's a jam of people, and it's entertainment jam because it could be music, it could be comedy, it could be spoken word, any sort of form of entertainment really. But it's like like-minded people coming together And as I say, that's how mental health kind of ties in, and it's kind of a safe space where people can kind of feel relaxed and feel, they can place they can go to where they can actually, meet like-minded people and just kind of enjoy themselves and, have a bit of time out, really.
Yeah, and I love that as well. The fact that the language you're using there of making it a safe space. I think that's great, and a safe space for performers as well as for the attendees as well. I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say I look for sort of local artists and ones also who are singer-songwriters. So it might be that they play songs there that they've only just sort of written, or they've would kind of worry about playing to a big, in a bigger setting or whatever. But it gives them that kind of ability to kind of hopefully, so yeah, feel a bit more safe to kind of play, new songs and things and test them out and see what people think and kind of, yeah.
Awesome. And who are some of the artists that you've worked with? I know you've worked with a lot, so I don't know. Pick a few that sort of come to mind first. I'm not going to get you to name the best ones because that's kind of unfair to people. So, but let us know about a few of the artists that you've worked with.
Well, so I don't want to. It's hard as well because you don't want to miss anyone out. But actually, there was over 60 different artists over the lockdown one, so I'm not going to be able to mention all of them anyway. Amir did quite a lot. He's a good friend of mine from when we were young anyway, but he's played lots of big gigs. He used to be a Michael Jackson tribute, now he does kind of his own stuff. He does kind of funky soul poppy music. But he's played lots of big venues and things. He's played the Jazz Cap in London. He played Glastonbury even a couple of years back as introducing the BBC introducing. But yeah, there's a few others. Tony Goff played quite a few. He's local to High Wycombe and he's got his own band, Tony Goff and Broken Colours. And who else? Tara Dean, who's playing in November at the front room for us. She's from Maidenhead. She hosts her own open mics and things like that. Who else? Let's see. Charlotte Campbell was one from London, who was a busker from London. There was a couple, Atticus Blue, who's doing really well at the moment, who was also a busker from London. Who else? Trying to think through different people now. When did we? I spoke to one recently actually, Steph Willis. She did the very first show.
Yeah.
She's also local to High Wycombe, and Laura Williams did that one as well. Oh, I really liked the duo. What were they? There was Grace Note duo, but there was also trying to remember the name of the actual duo themselves. It was Brina and someone else. I can't remember now. But that was one of the very first few shows. But it was like a rock duo. I really liked their sound. But yeah, there was loads of different ones. We kind of tried to a big variation really of all different tastes, rather than kind of just ones that I liked. But yeah, my main sort of criteria for picking ones was kind of looking at their live streams and seeing how they were live rather than as opposed to Spotify or Amazon Music or that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool, awesome. And you mentioned your gig coming up at the front room. So what can you tell us about that? So, where can people get tickets? What are the times for it? Who are the performers? All of that good stuff.
So there is one coming up in a day or two, but that'll be before this goes out. So the one in November that's the October one. The one in November is on the 9th of November, I believe. Yeah, let's get this right. No, the 11th of November. The 9th one is the 9th of December. It's the second Friday of the month, basically. They're always the second Friday of the month at the front room. We have Tara Dean playing, and we have Chilton Groove, who are the band playing, and also Amanda Marie, who's played there before. She has been part of the jazz nights they have there. So it's basically, it'll be Tara Dean, Amanda Marie, and then Chilton Groove as the band at the end.
Awesome, cool. And what are some of the different venues that you've worked with, both here and some of the ones that you used to do in Gerrard's Cross as well?
So here we've worked with the Arts Centre in Wycombe and also now the front room, and we're speaking to a few other venues at the moment. Don't really want to quite say who they are yet, in case it doesn't, whether they go ahead or not. But yeah, there's a couple of venues we're speaking to in Wycombe as well. Previously in Gerrard's Cross, it was mainly at the community centre there, and also we did a few comedy nights, and I think we did an open mic at the E-Thorpe back then. Moving forward, as I say, we're speaking to a few more venues. The main reason kind of why I went with High Wycombe in the first place after lockdown was looking at the stats from the viewers over lockdown, and most of them were kind of this area. So that was kind of why Wycombe was kind of the focus so far. It might well grow, hopefully, in the future to other places, but Wycombe's kind of where I'm focusing on at the moment, trying to get a few venues around Wycombe. And then moving forward, kind of we want to try and get as many sort of local sort of singer-songwriters, as possible. We might hopefully drop in a few ones that are sort of London-based and things to kind of draw people in. But even if they are those sort of slightly bigger, they'll be supported by local artists still.
Yeah. Well, I think as well, one of the challenges with putting on events in Wickham is that, after a while, it's the same, it's the same 10 bands or whatever, or the same solo artists. And, after a while, it's kind of like they've played all of the different venues. So it's nice to bring in some people from London. And as you say, then get a local artist to support them as well. And then you get a bit of the best of the both worlds. So you get to see a local artist. You also get to see somebody who you might not otherwise get to see,
Yeah, well, as you say, I mean, but also I think there was, previously years back, there was quite a big scene in Wickham in regards to music. Back 80s, 90s and stuff. There was big bands used to play here, and I still think there's the musicians out there around here to play, and there's also the people wanting to see them. So I think it's more sort of getting venues involved and getting as many people kind of involved as possible to try and bring it back. And I think there's a couple of names actually I just realised I hadn't mentioned who were from the live ones. So Soraya Ray, she played my first live gig. She's a local musician. So she's only 14, singer-songwriter. She does a lot of busking around Wickham. Played Penfest this year. And Jazz Dillon as well. She was fantastic when she played my second gig, I think it was, the Arts Centre. She she loop pedals both her voice and her guitar, and it's a really cool kind of unusual sound that I really like. So hoping she'll be on maybe for the Christmas one at the front room.
Awesome, cool. And one thing I've been wondering, like, how does it differ to put on? Again, you're putting back the physical events back on now, and you were doing those before. So how does putting on a physical event differ from putting on a live stream, an online event?
Well, I think now obviously one big thing about the live streams was that when you contacted artists, they didn't have anything else on, so it's most likely that they'll say yes. Whereas now, obviously, there's a lot of people getting booked up for things, so it's a bit more kind of difficult sometimes to book people. Also, I think just the logistics behind, having the equipment, all that kind of stuff, setting up the venue, kind of, speaking with the manager, getting everything kind of sorted on that side of things, because with the lockdown ones, kind of the artists had that bit themselves covered. So it was kind of like I would host it and they would do their bit, and they would have their equipment, their instruments, whatever they needed set up, and that they would do it from their end. Whereas obviously now it's all kind of at a venue. They bring stuff obviously, but you've got to have a PA, you've got to have all these different things kind of set up, and so it's kind of, there's a few more logistical things and probably a few more things regards to booking, and it's probably the other main thing is the difference between obviously hosting something online when most people are kind of sat at home and not much to do, and now everyone's kind of can be out and about again. Not that they are as much as we probably used to be with everything, cost of living and everything at the moment, but I think it's harder to kind of get physical people there in a way, because obviously you've got to sell tickets and things, and kind of because you need to obviously pay for the equipment and artists and everything and the cost of putting it on. So I think that's probably the harder part to it. But I think having built the base from the lockdown gigs, having a good base of followers on there has helped massively to kind of get that started.
You're listening to The Arch on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain. I'm here in conversation with local music promoter Neil Brown, and this is Tom Bradley Jr., a previous guest on the show, with Notice Me.
Pick the post up at the door and cleaned up the floor, 'cause we don't talk anymore now. Broken memories left to waste, and I need a little space, 'cause we don't talk anymore now. But I hope she's doing fine without me, and I hope she change her mind. Notice me, yeah, and I romantic places at the table now, and I'm out of place somehow, 'cause we don't talk anymore now. Broken memories are left to waste, and I need my best mate, 'cause we don't talk anymore now. But I hope she's doing fine without me, and I hope she change her mind, notice me, yeah. And I hope she's doing fine without me, and I hope she change her mind and notice me. But I hope she's doing fine without me, and I hope she change her mind, notice me, yeah. And I hope she's doing fine without me, yeah. And I hope she change her mind and notice me.
That was Notice Me by Tom Bradley Jr. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and I'm joined now in conversation by this week's guest, who is local music promoter Neil Brown.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I suppose, your artist roster, because in a way, again, going back to putting on a physical event, you know, if you're booking someone who's done a live stream event for you, you've worked with them in the past, you already know what to expect from their set, you've already got that established reputation as well. So I suppose that kind of helped as well. So you've almost got, when you move back to the live events, you'd almost got your kind of audience of attendees, and then also your like network of musicians, I suppose.
Well, no, absolutely. I actually found through doing the lockdown ones, I met probably more people than I would have done if we hadn't been doing lockdown, to be honest. The amount of musicians and people I spoke to, as I say, we had over 60 different artists play, and it was something over 120 different performances in total. And yeah, my you know, the people who, my friend list on Facebook went up by more than it ever would have done. You know, I just think, yeah, and getting to know a lot of people. It was at that time as well, getting to know people at that time. It was kind of, you see a different side to people that you might not have done if you just met them in public, in a way. I think that, you know, and everyone was kind of had that common thing that they were going, you know, difficulty they were going through regards to mental health and everything, the whole, you know, experience of lockdown and, you know, losing loved ones, etc., all these different things that were going on. And I think, you know, it was just had that bit more of realness to it. I remember when I went to that Frogfest in 2021, when it was kind of Frogfest light, and just everyone there was just really appreciative of just being at a live gig. You know, it just seemed that kind of atmosphere where everyone just was so happy to be there. There was no trouble. There was no kind of, you know, people getting ridiculously. It was just kind of people enjoying themselves and family feel, everyone having a good time and kind of, you know, just happy to be there, really, which was great. And I hope that continues.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And so in terms of, obviously you've worked with a lot of different venues, you've like worked with a lot of different artists, and you've mentioned you're in talks with a few venues as well. But I was wondering, are there any venues and or artists who you'd really love to work with who you haven't had a chance to yet?
Well, there's a couple of artists and things that I've been to see myself, who I would really like to have involved. I think it would probably have to grow a bit to get to that stage. But there's one particular one I saw, When Rivers Meet, who are a fantastic sort of blues rock duo that I've seen in London. They're brilliant, but yeah, they would be kind of a lot more expensive than what we're currently looking at. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ones in the local area that I've had on through the lockdown that I still haven't kind of had on for the live ones. So
Yeah.
there'll be a few of them. Tony Goff is one of them actually. He's definitely going to be playing. He's not playing in November, but he probably will be. I think he's playing the December one.
Yeah.
If not, he'll be playing in the new year. Maz Banzini will be playing sometime soon as well. I think he's playing the Christmas one. Dan Pride's played previously, but I really like his sound. He does a mix of covers and originals. He does a lot of gigs, kind of not quite High Wycombe, more sort of Maidenhead, Reading,
Windsor
Slough,
way,
kind
I
of
think he
area.
does. Yeah.
So a few different ones around that area, but he's done a few around here. He's done a couple for me now, because he did one at the Arts Centre, and he did the first sort of live lounge, the launch of the live lounge at the Arts Centre, at the front room in August, which was we had 8 artists on at that one. It was a big sort of like an all day thing, which was quite cool.
It's funny as well, because a lot of the musicians that you've mentioned that you've worked with, like, they put on events themselves. So for example, Maz does his he's got his Our Friends Acoustic at the Rose and Crown. Dan Pride, I know, hosts an open mic. Steph Willis, she's done a few things at the Mad Squirrel recently. But it's interesting, because there's that kind of ecosystem where everybody wants everyone else to succeed. So there's no real, it's not like there's cutthroat competition between your events and someone else's events, and everyone can coexist. And I don't know, I think it's a nice scene to be a part of.
Well, yeah, I think that's vitally important actually, with regards to trying to sort of build up a scene again around High Wycombe and the surrounding area. You need that kind of atmosphere where it's healthy competition and people are kind of pushing, as you say, pushing each other forward rather than trying to fight against each other, because I think it's not going to be one person that's going to drive events happening in general in Wycombe. You're going to need a lot of people getting involved, a lot of people working together, a lot of people wanting the same things. And I think if people are kind of in communication and kind of working, sort of helping each other, like you mentioned Steph's gigs at the Mad Squirrel. It's not like I would ever go on something like this and not think, oh, I can't possibly mention that, because I want gigs happening around the area. And for me, I think that way, I think actually it helps me anyway, because I think the more people going to gigs around the area, the more footfall there is, the more people see things, the more it's just kind of, the more people are talking about music and mental health and different things, and just gets that vibe going in general, not just at the gigs, but people are talking about it outside of the gigs as well. And that's how you get people to come to gigs. And really is word of mouth is still the most important thing, regardless of how big online has now become. Word of mouth is how you'll kind of get people regularly coming to gigs, because people are talking about it outside the gig, and it's still you go more off personal recommendations, I think, people rather than a recommendation online. I think it's kind of it's that personal thing to it. Say you're looking for a plumber or something, or a hairdresser, or whatever it is, you generally you ask your friends who and things like that, then you kind of. So I think that's still the way that things are kind of going to grow. And I think having other people involved that are doing different things, especially with the kind of, when we're looking at mental health awareness and stuff like that as well, as many events happening there as possible is what we want. I think I'm happy to kind of, I want to, other people that are hosting events like myself and other artists who've played at other events, I'm happy to kind of help, cross promote things. I help them. I promote theirs, they share mine, I share theirs, etc. I think it's really, I think that just kind of helps the vibe of it as well, to be honest.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. So only got a couple more questions. One of them that I wanted to ask is, like, do you have a highlight? Has there been a particular moment that you've been putting on events that's really stood out to you as being like the pinnacle of it so far?
I wouldn't say necessarily a pinnacle. It's hard to kind of pinpoint a point where it was, but I do remember the first live gig we did at the Arts Centre after coming back. I mean, I waited a few months before I did a live one for a couple of reasons. One, because I wanted to kind of get used to being back and out and about myself first, in honesty, and two, because I wanted to kind of see what other people were doing as well, and kind of get a feel for what and kind of find a niche really. But I think one of the moments I really remember kind of quite vividly is when I first kind of told my mental health story on stage. I'd done it, on the live streams in lockdown, but that was just talking to a camera. You know,
Yeah.
that this was talking with people there in front of you, watching, you know, listening. I think that was quite like a big moment in a way for me personally, as well as for the events themselves. In regards to mental health awareness, I work as a peer support worker now, which basically means that I work with people who are going through similar issues to what I have previously. And I think that's vital for me in regards to my mental health, because I know in a way that something positive has come out of my experience. I think a lot of positive have anyway, because I've learned a lot of things, but it's kind of like I can use that experience to help others as well. Is really important to me, and that's a big part of the events as well. But yeah, I think that moment, I think also when we did the first gig at the front room, the fact that it was an all-day gig, we had 8 different artists playing, we had a DJ at the end, it was all kind of, and it was like general, I say general, it was the people who would be in the cafe normally during the day, and then there was a paid bit in the evening, and it was all just, yeah, it was really nice to have an all-day one that I hadn't done that before, and you know, it was kind of like a festival type thing. And yeah, I think that was really important, really big as well. I really liked, you know, having that setting and kind of having the different artists we had play there. Dan was one of them. There was Andrew Hogger. There was memories going. But yeah, we had quite a few, you know, I'd say 8 different artists play, and it was a really enjoyable gig, I think. But yeah, I think in general, there was a few different moments over the lockdown ones as well. I remember one of the ones in particular, quite funny moments, was one of the artists was struggling with their equipment and couldn't get set up basically. So we were waiting for the stream. So I was kind of just filling time by chatting basically about what's coming up next week and all this kind of stuff. And eventually I basically ran out of things to say. So I had to start singing myself because there was just nothing left to kind of talk about. So yeah, that was quite interesting. And my brother was behind the camera. I asked him to put on a you know, simple song, an easy song to sing, and he put on Californication by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I was like, really? Like, are you being sarcastic? Or I can't remember what it was I sang in the end as Brian Adams, I think. But yeah, so but no, it was there's been a lot of moments over the whole thing, and I think it was massive for me regards to my mental health. It helped me over lockdown as well personally, kind of gave me the focus and something to kind of really home in on. I was lucky enough to have some work with regards to my IT stuff that I did, but that was something that was my passion, that gave me drive and kind of gave me something to kind of focus on. And I think hopefully it helped other people as well. Regards to, you know, we've raised over £1,000 now. I think we raised 700 something over lockdown for Mind, and we're doing the local Mind ones now. I think we'll raise money for Bucks Mind at this next event. But yeah, I think, but just not just that as well. I think hopefully that a lot of people found it helpful over lockdown, and say something to kind of connect people and kind of bring them together a bit and you know, that common experience of listening to people, the same person, and people, you know, were messaging and chat on the comments and stuff. And I think it just kind of hopefully had that feel of it kind of helping to bring people together when they couldn't really get together physically. And hopefully that will kind of help, you know, that's to say the feel moving forward, hopefully that it's kind of the aim of the events that I put on the Facebook or the Instagram is, it doesn't actually mention music, believe it or not. It actually just says raising mental health awareness and fostering community spirit. So the idea is, say, bring people together. That's why I say it's called the Entertainment Jam. It's a jam of people. It's being, you know, like-minded people together who want to kind of need that kind of time to kind of relax and enjoy themselves. And if you want to be just there to enjoy the music, then great. If you want to chat to people, you know, I think I found that people, when I've come off stage, having told my story and things or talked about mental health, some people will come and chat to me and speak to me about their own experience. And I just think that, for me, the biggest thing with my mental health was talking was the sort of most helpful thing. So I think if it gets people being able to talk about their mental health more, then I think that'd be fantastic. That's one of the most important things to me with regards to posting them.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Okay, so just to end on, really, and you covered this a little bit, but what's next for you, and where can people follow you to find out more and to stay up to date?
So we're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. The Entertainment Jam on all of them. So yeah, the Entertainment Jam. That's how you can access it online. There's also on there as well, you'll find there's a link that takes you to all the tickets basically, and links to all the other socials. That's a link tree web address. I think it's linktr.ee/lockdown music, because it was on promotional material and stuff, so we've kind of kept it as that for now, but that will probably change to Entertainment Jam as well to kind of sink in. But yeah, so that's online. Regards to moving forward, so we have, as I say, the event in November at the Front Room. We also have another event in December at the Front Room, which is the 9th of December. That'll be the sort of big kind of Christmas gig, and we're hoping to maybe have another gig at a venue in Wickham before Christmas as well. Moving forward into New Year, we're sticking with the ones at the Front Room, and we're going to have them the second Friday of every month moving forward. And I'll have more news on who'll be playing soon. I think we're gonna hopefully book a good few of them in before sort of Christmas.
Yeah.
And then also we're speaking to a few different venues around Wickham. There was something else I particularly wanted to. Oh yes, so the Front Room. We're talking to them about doing an open mic there, so that's something that will be happening soon. We haven't got an exact date yet for that, but that is kind of in the offing, and hopefully will be happening fairly soon. And I think we're going to kind of connect with some other online groups and stuff that kind of done stuff over lockdown locally, so to kind of help bring that forward. So hopefully that, as you've said previously, really, kind of different people working together who are hosting gigs to kind of, as you say, kind of helping each other and kind of helping the scene itself, want the scene to grow rather than being specific to, I want my events to grow. It's more, I want the scene to grow. I want the artists to have places they can play. I want people to have places they can go to, whether it's my gigs or it's other people's or the ones I'm involved with. As long as it grows the scene and gets people, more mental health awareness and more people listening to music and more platforms for local artists to kind of perform, then that's something I'm kind of want to be involved in and want to be successful.
Cussing down and she fries his head. Doesn't matter how, you're gonna end up dead. He falls down the hill leaving a bloody trail, and a zombie's body drops after a scream and a wail. But hey, who cares? It's just child's play. The south could stop its turning, and it will not be today. They said, hey, who cares? It's just child's play. This earth could stop its turning, and it will not be today. The witch comes to join the flight, she's flying around. She lets loose a hellfire onto the ground. Several burn up in the heat of the flame that comes pouring down like the falling rain. Well, who cares? It's just child's play. This earth could stop its turning, it will not be today. And I said, hey, who cares? It's just child's play. This earth could stop its turning, and it will not be today. Commander crawling around the wall. A soldier comes from safety, but only to fall to a pack of savages who run him through. Humanity's almost gone, this just can't be true. Well, who cares? It's just child's play. This earth could stop its turning, and it will not be today. But who cares? It's just child's play. This sun could stop its turning, and it will not be today. Say, who cares? It's just child's play. The sun could stop its turning, and it will not be today. They said, hey, who cares? It's just child's play. The sun could stop its turning, and it will not be today. They said, wait, what if it's not just child's play? The sun could stop its turning, and it could well be today. I said, wait, what if it's not just child's play? The sun could stop its turning, and it could well be today.
That was Child's Play by Dan Pride. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and it's now time for us to head over to Twangling Jack Ford in the Oak Shed for this week's album review.
KT Tunstall, Eye to the Telescope. At open mic nights you would often find pretty young women with angelic voices, decorously hunched over acoustic guitars, their spindly manicured fingers curling over the neck one by one, with no apparent hurry to form the next chord. You will also find the slightly older ones, the ones that play weddings, the ones that medley popular songs into epics that make you admire their skill, their ear for spotting similar chord changes, but also make you despair at the banality of modern songwriting. KT Tunstall could have been one of these. This album is full of nicely sung, pleasant acoustic songs. It is pleasantly produced, and she is backed by very capable musicians. Dinner party music for those who have no taste for jazz or Vivaldi. However, one night she appeared on Jules Holland, apparently as a last-minute replacement for an act that had pulled out. I just happened to be watching as she built up percussion, guitar and woo-woo vocals using a loop pedal. It is now something you see a lot, and Ed Sheeran has made a career of it. But it instantly made KT and her song Black Horse and the Cherry Tree famous. But better than that song, in my opinion, is her other hit from this album, a breezy, happy pop song, which has a 60s Beatles feel. Suddenly I See. KT Tunstall, Eye to the Telescope.
Big thank you to Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review. Thank you to Neil Brown for joining me. Thank you to everyone whose music I've shared. As always, if you have any feedback, you can email me here at the studio on dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. I'm particularly keen to hear from poets, performers, musicians, anyone with MP3s to share, anyone involved in the local arts news, arts scene, etc. Do get in touch. You can also find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. And we repeat on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen again. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcast. So I'm going to leave you with one last tune, and this is Colin Upfield with Mona Lisa Smile. I'll catch you next week.
Sitting in the gallery, watching me. There's other pictures I could see, but they don't do the things you do to me. When you're hanging on the wall, the others might as well not be there at all. Though I know you're flawed in parts, to me you're a work of art. When I look into your eyes, it's like looking at the night sky. When I look into your face, it takes me to another place. But the greatest thing by miles is looking at your Mona Lisa. looking at